The laughter still echoes in my head. That night, on the plateau, it was supposed to be nothing more than a celebration. A simple gathering of friends under the open sky. But the human mind has a way of turning joy into terror when isolation strips away the safety of the familiar. What began with music, fire, and stories ended with whispers in the dark, shadows in the distance, and a silence so deep it made my own heartbeat feel deafening. If you've ever thought that danger only lives in the cities, wait until you find yourself stranded on a stretch of land where there's no one to hear you scream. It was Daniel's idea. He'd just landed a promotion at work and wanted to celebrate away from the noise of the city. "Let's go somewhere remote," he said. "A place where we won't bother anyone." After some searching, we found it. A plateau about 3 hours' drive outside town, flat and wide, overlooking a valley that seemed to swallow the horizon. It wasn't a campsite, not an official one anyway. Just a clearing where people sometimes parked their cars for the view. We went in 3 cars, Daniel and his girlfriend Emily, my friend Chris with his younger cousin Aaron, and me. 6 of us in total. Enough to feel safe, but not too many to draw attention. We arrived late in the afternoon, just as the sun was bleeding orange across the sky. The air was crisp, the kind that makes every breath feel clean, and for a moment, standing there with the wind against my face, I thought we'd made the perfect choice. We set up a circle, blankets, coolers, a small fire pit. Someone brought a speaker, and soon the plateau was filled with music that carried out into the open air. We danced, we laughed, we toasted Daniel's success. From up there, the world felt distant, like nothing could touch us. But I remember Emily's words, quiet, almost lost under the music. "It's too empty out here," she said, "like we're being watched." We brushed it off as nerves. After all, none of us were exactly seasoned campers. The nearest town was about 20 minutes back down the road, but once the sun disappeared, it felt like we had driven into another world entirely. The kind where your phone signal flickered between one bar and none at all. As the night wore on, the mood shifted. Not dramatically, just enough that I noticed. The wind picked up, carrying with it strange rustling sounds from the brush beyond the plateau's edge. The fire crackled lower, throwing long, bending shadows that seemed to move even when we sat still. And then there was Aaron, the youngest of us, only 19, who kept glancing toward the darkness. "Did you guys hear that?" he asked once, his voice barely louder than the wind. We all froze. A snapping sound, like a twig under weight, came from somewhere beyond the firelight. Daniel laughed nervously, tossing a rock into the dark. "Coyotes," he said. "That's all. They won't come near us." But something in Aaron's face unsettled me. He wasn't just spooked, he looked convinced. We tried to shake it off. More music, more drinks. But the air grew heavier, the laughter shorter. My eyes kept drifting beyond the firelight too, as if the night itself was daring me to look deeper. That's when Emily suggested we pack it up. "Let's just go," she said. "We've been here long enough." But Daniel didn't want the celebration to end. He argued, pushed back, poured another round. And so we stayed. Around midnight, the wind died down, leaving an eerie stillness. It was Chris who first noticed something wrong. He frowned, tilting his head. "Do you guys hear breathing?" We all went silent. At first, I thought it was just the wind in my ears, but then I caught it. Slow, steady, deliberate. Not ours. Not from inside the circle. From just beyond it. Daniel grabbed a flashlight and swept it toward the sound. Nothing. Just scrub and rocks. But the moment he killed the light, the breathing seemed louder, closer. My stomach tightened. Maybe we should really go. But again, Daniel tried to be the voice of reason. He said we were letting our imaginations run wild, that paranoia grows in the dark. He was right, paranoia does grow in the dark. But sometimes it grows because there's a seed planted. And I swear that night something had planted itself among us. We tried to laugh again, but the effort felt forced. Nobody admitted it out loud, but none of us wanted to stray too far from the fire now. Even walking to the edge of the blankets felt dangerous, like the darkness itself had teeth. Sometime after 1, Emily disappeared. First, we thought she'd gone to the car. But when she didn't come back, Daniel called out. No answer. He grabbed the flashlight again, scanning the area, his voice sharp with irritation and fear. Emily, come on. Don't mess around. No reply. We split up. Not far, just a few meters each, keeping the fire in sight. My throat tightened with every step I took into the dark. The beam of my flashlight shook as I moved it across the ground. That's when I saw them, footprints. Emily's, leading away from the fire. Only she wasn't wearing shoes. She had kicked them off earlier, laughing about how the ground felt soft under her feet. These prints led toward the edge of the plateau. I followed them with my heart hammering in my chest. They went straight, no hesitation, until they stopped, abruptly, at the edge of the drop. The dirt there was disturbed, as though someone had stood still for a long time. But there were no prints leading back. No sign of a fall. Just nothing. When I called the others over, panic erupted. Daniel shouted her name into the valley, his voice cracking with each attempt. Chris cursed under his breath. Aaron wouldn't even come close to the edge. He just kept shaking his head, muttering, "No, no, no." We searched for nearly an hour, circling the plateau, calling her name until our throats went raw. But she was gone. No sound of struggle, no trace of where she had gone. By 2 a.m., the celebration was over. We sat in silence around the dying fire, each of us waiting for something, anything, to explain what had happened. That's when I realized the breathing hadn't stopped. If anything, it was closer. The breathing was so steady it almost blended with our own. None of us wanted to be the first to admit we heard it, but silence has a way of forcing truth into the open. Aaron finally whispered, "It's not Emily." His words sliced through the night like a knife. Daniel snapped. He shouted at him to shut up, insisted it was just nerves, insisted Emily must have wandered off and was too stubborn to answer. But his voice cracked with every denial. I could see it in his face. He knew something was wrong. The fire burned low, throwing more shadow than light now. Every gust of wind made the brush rustle, and each sound pulled my nerves tighter. I told myself that Emily would come back any second, maybe laughing, maybe apologizing, but a part of me knew she wouldn't. People don't just vanish without reason. And if she had walked to the edge barefoot and hadn't fallen, then she hadn't been alone. We argued about what to do next. Chris wanted to leave immediately, to drive back to town and get help. But Daniel refused. "I'm not leaving her out here," he said. His hands trembled, though he tried to hide it. He grabbed the flashlight and started walking toward the edge again, calling her name. I stayed rooted near the fire, unable to shake the sense that if I stepped too far into the darkness, I'd never come back either. Aaron sat rigid, arms wrapped around his knees, whispering prayers under his breath. Chris paced, muttering, running his hands through his hair. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. My phone showed 3:17 a.m. battery at 22%. No service. Not even a flicker of a signal. That's when I noticed something strange. Near the brush at the far side of the plateau, two faint lights flickered, like reflections. Not bright, not steady. Almost like eyes catching the glow of the dying fire. I blinked hard. Maybe I was imagining it. But then Chris stopped pacing, his gaze fixed on the same spot. "Do you see that?" he asked. I nodded. Aaron refused to look. He just buried his face deeper into his knees. Daniel returned then, out of breath, his flashlight beam shaking. "Nothing. No sign of her. It's like she—" He didn't finish the sentence. His eyes followed ours toward the brush. "What the hell is that?" The lights disappeared. The brush swayed once, twice, and then stilled. Nobody spoke. The only sound was the faint crackle of the fire and that steady, rhythmic breathing, closer now, circling us. My chest felt like it was caving in. I wanted to scream, to demand we all leave, but my voice caught in my throat. Fear does that. It makes you silent when you should run. Finally, Chris broke. "We're leaving. Now." He grabbed Aaron by the arm and pulled him toward the cars. I followed without hesitation. But Daniel lingered, his face torn between panic and stubbornness. "I can't," he said. "I can't just leave her here. We'll come back with help," I shouted. "We can't do anything in the dark." For a moment I thought he'd fight me. But then the sound came, a low, dragging scrape across the dirt, from somewhere just beyond the circle of light. Not footsteps, not an animal. Something deliberate, slow, like someone pulling a heavy object. Daniel's face drained of color. He finally moved, bolting toward the cars with us. We piled in, doors slamming, engines roaring to life. But when Chris turned the key in his car, nothing happened. Just a sputter, then silence. My stomach dropped. He tried again. Nothing. Daniel's car was the same, dead. Only mine coughed to life, headlights cutting into the black. "Get in!" I screamed. They didn't hesitate. Chris shoved Aaron into the back seat while Daniel climbed in beside me. My hands shook as I gripped the wheel, headlights sweeping over the plateau. For a split second, I saw something at the edge of the light, tall, too tall, a figure standing unnaturally still. But the moment I blinked, it was gone. I hit the gas, tires spitting dirt, heart hammering. The road down from the plateau was narrow, twisting, and every shadow seemed to move as we sped past. Nobody spoke. Even Aaron's prayers had stopped. When we finally reached the highway, I pulled over, chest heaving, palms slick with sweat. I thought maybe we were safe, maybe we'd imagined more than what was real. But then Daniel leaned forward, his voice low. "Emily's shoes. Did you see them?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" "They weren't at the fire," he said. "She kicked them off near the blankets. I went back just now. They were gone." Nobody replied. The only sound was the engine idling, the weight of his words pressing down on us. Someone had taken them. We drove back to town in silence. At the police station, we tried to explain. They sent a search team, but I knew before they left it wouldn't matter. By the time they reached the plateau, Emily was gone. No footprints, no trace, not even her shoes. The investigation dragged on for weeks. They questioned us over and over. Drugs? Alcohol? A fight? Did Emily leave with someone else? But none of it made sense. How do you explain footprints that lead to the edge and stop? How do you explain breathing in the dark or cars that suddenly die? Daniel was never the same. He stopped showing up to work, stopped answering calls. Chris tried to move on, but I know he still wakes up at night, checking the corners of his room for eyes that aren't there. Aaron left for another city, cut contact with everyone. And me? I can't sleep without lights on. Sometimes, in the silence of my apartment, I hear it again, that slow, steady breathing. Not mine. Never mine. People ask why I'm telling this story now. Maybe because silence eats you alive if you don't break it. Maybe because if you're ever tempted to celebrate in a place that feels too empty, you need to remember this. Emptiness is never really empty. Someone or something is always waiting. And if you're still listening, if you've made it this far, I need you to do one thing. Share this story. Not for me, not even for Emily, but for yourself. Because the plateau isn't the only place where celebrations turn into nightmares. And the more people who know, the fewer who end up disappearing into the dark.